The Holocaust stands as one of the darkest chapters in human history, a period of unimaginable cruelty, suffering, and loss. It is a story that demands to be remembered, not just for its victims, but for humanity as a whole. The events that unfolded during this time serve as a warning of what can happen when hatred, prejudice, and dehumanization are allowed to take root in society. The rise of Nazi ideology. In the 1920s and 1930s, Europe was struggling with political instability and economic hardship following World War I. The Treaty of Versailles, which had ended the First World War, placed heavy reparations on Germany, leaving the nation in a state of economic collapse. The Great Depression only worsened matters, causing widespread poverty and unrest. It was in this climate that Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power in Germany. Hitler's ideology, outlined in his book Mein Kampf, was based on a belief in the superiority of the Aryan race and a virulent hatred of Jews. He viewed Jews as the enemy of the German people, accusing them of being responsible for Germany's defeat in World War II, as well as its economic struggles. This belief was central to the Nazi agenda, which sought to purify Germany by ridding it of Jews, Romani people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, and other groups deemed undesirable. In 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany, and soon after, he began consolidating power. The Nazis used propaganda, violence, and intimidation to silence opposition and create an atmosphere of fear. By the time Hitler became Führer, leader, in 1934, the Nazi Party had effectively taken control of Germany, and its racist, anti-Semitic ideology began to permeate every aspect of society. The beginning of persecution. The first steps in the persecution of Jews came in the early years of Nazi rule. In 1935, the Nuremberg Laws were enacted, which stripped Jews of their German citizenship and imposed severe restrictions on their rights. Jews were forbidden to marry non-Jews, and their access to public life, including jobs, education, and even public spaces, was severely limited. The Nazis also began organizing large-scale public rallies, creating an atmosphere of fervent nationalism. The infamous Kristallnacht, or Night of Broken Glass, in 1938 marked a turning point in the persecution. Over the course of 2 days, Jewish-owned businesses, synagogues, and homes were destroyed in a violent spree, and tens of thousands of Jews were arrested and sent to concentration camps. As the persecution of Jews intensified, many Jews began to flee Germany, seeking refuge in other countries. However, many nations, including the United States, had strict immigration policies and were unwilling to offer asylum to large numbers of refugees. This lack of support left many Jews trapped in Nazi-controlled territory, where the horrors of the Holocaust would soon unfold. The road to genocide. With the invasion of Poland in 1939, World War I began, and the Nazis' plans for the Jews escalated. Hitler's ultimate goal was to establish a new order in Europe, which would be dominated by the so-called master race. Central to this vision was the complete extermination of Jews and other so-called undesirables. In the early years of the war, the Nazis employed mass shootings as a primary means of killing Jews, particularly in the territories they occupied in Eastern Europe. Special units known as Einsatzgruppen were deployed to murder Jews, Roma, and political opponents. These massacres were brutal, with thousands of men, women, and children being executed in open fields or pits, often in front of their families. The psychological toll on the perpetrators was immense, But the Nazis were determined to carry out their mission of extermination. The most notorious of the Nazi death camps was Auschwitz-Birkenau, located in Poland. Here, Jews and other victims were transported from all over Europe in cattle cars, often enduring brutal conditions during the journey. Upon arrival, they were separated into two groups: those who were immediately sent to gas chambers, and those who were selected for forced labor, often working in grueling conditions that led to starvation, disease, and death. Auschwitz, like other concentration and extermination camps, was designed to be a place of death. The gas chambers, disguised as shower rooms, could kill hundreds of people at a time. Victims were forced to strip naked and enter the chambers, where they were then killed by Zyklon B gas. The bodies were burned in massive crematoriums, and the ashes were often scattered or buried in mass graves.